Hi everyone. I wanted to start going over your SOL review packets. Again, these reviews are on Thursdays, and if you can't make it, I'm always going to record them. But also remember that the more you see this material, the better off you're going to be. Now, this first couple of pages of review packet 1 is a lot of stuff that you probably saw in middle school. And if you didn't, don't worry about it. You can learn it now. But anyways, just to get you guys going, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the real number system. Now, the real number system is a whole system of numbers that basically encompass what's on the number line, okay, which is what we see as the x-axis, okay? So I wanted to kind of show you some of this stuff. This is not stuff you're going to be tested on, but it's important regardless, so that you understand the vocabulary that's in math and what we mean when we say make sure it's an integer, make sure it's a whole number, and stuff like that. So the first type of natural numbers are the first type of numbers that we're going to see are natural numbers. They're a type of real number, and those are your counting numbers. They start with 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's why we call them natural, and they use the symbol n to symbolize them. Then going a step up, now remember, as I go up, these are all natural numbers are whole numbers, integers, rational, and real. Okay, so whole numbers are also integers, rational, and real. Okay, so it's kind of like a big bubble. Whole numbers are natural numbers and 0. Okay, so it includes 0. So counting numbers, we don't include 0 because we don't start counting at 0, but whole numbers, we include them. Okay, integers are whole numbers and their opposite. So do you notice how it encompasses everything that's in here? They cannot be fractions or decimals. So a lot of times when you're hearing things, when they say put things, make sure you have an integer answer, that means there's no decimals, no fractions, okay? Rational numbers can always be expressed as a fraction, hence the name ratio is in the base of that number. And we use the symbol Q for those. These are all examples of rational numbers, and here's an example of irrational numbers. So some good examples are pi, which we know because it repeats, it goes on forever and does not repeat. The way I define them is non-terminating, non-repeating decimals. So notice that the 1/3 is equal to 0.3 repeating. That is a rational number because even though it repeats, it can be expressed as a fraction. Okay, so and anything that's not a perfect square and yet you try to take the square root, that's also irrational. Okay, so then we have real numbers, which we use the symbol R right here, and it's a funky R. It has 2 lines and an R like that. And irrational numbers are I, integers are Z, and whole numbers are W. Okay, and then I just went ahead and classified these numbers as rational, integers, or real. Go ahead and write those down. When we go ahead and use properties of real numbers, when we're dealing with real numbers, excuse me, we have to understand the properties that are associated with them. We use these properties all the time, in particular when we are trying to solve equations and stuff like that. So just to give you some background, the commutative property is, remember, most of these properties only work with multiplication and addition, okay? So be very, very careful with those. The commutative property means that changing the order doesn't change the product or sum. And I always look at, say, okay, look at the CO in commutative, and that stands for change order. Because I always got, I don't know about you, but I always got commutative and associative mixed up. And this is a great way to help you remember it. Associative is when you change the location of the grouping symbols. It doesn't change the product or the sum. Again, don't divide, don't subtract. That's going to change. Okay? Then I try to give little things on each one of them as a way to remember them. The identity property means that whatever you start with is what you end up with. So how do you add, what do you add to a number to keep it the same? You would add 0. What do you multiply by a number to keep it the same? And that would be multiply by 1. All right. The inverse property is how we use these inverse properties a lot of times when we're solving equations. So one of the things we remember is that any number plus its opposite is equal to 0, and then any number times its inverse is 1. Okay? So be sure and pause the video if you need to and fill in these notes. Make sure you have them all down. The more you write down, I guarantee you, if you go through all these videos and you pay attention and you do the practice, I promise you, you will do just fine on your SOL. Okay? Now, the zero product is exactly what it sounds like. If you multiply anything by 0, it's equal to 0. And distributive, the way I recognize it, because sometimes associative and distributive get mixed up, is that with distributive property, we're basically getting rid of the parentheses. So if you notice, there's going to be parentheses on one side, but not on the other. Okay? And then reflexive is anything is equal to itself. Nothing changes when you do that, and there's usually only one term on either side. The symmetric property is when it kind of flips it over. And I always look for the if-then statement with the symmetric property. So if A is equal to B, then B is equal to A. Okay? But none of the numbers change. They just switch sides. Okay? The transitive property, which you guys will see a lot in geometry, also known as the law of syllogism, is a 3-step property. And you guys have probably seen it quite a few times. It's if A is equal to B and B is equal to C, then A is equal to C. Okay? So it's usually if this and this, then this. Okay? So there's 3 steps. So you look for the if and then. Okay? And in symmetric, you just look for the if then. It's 2 steps. Okay? So hopefully this helps you. All right. So we're going to go on to the next page, where we're going to identify some of these properties. And then I'm going to also use the calculator for some of this stuff so that you guys can see what to do. So here, this would be the commutative property of addition because we changed the order. I know a lot of people want to say symmetric. There's usually not addition or subtraction involved in there. Okay? So this one right here is also a reflexive property because it's equal to itself. And here is the zero property of multiplication. Here I went from parentheses on one side to no parentheses, so that would be distributive property. And then this one, do you notice how we have an if, and then? So that is our transitive property. Okay? This is the additive identity. How do I know that? Because I started out with 8K and I added 0 and I ended up with 8K. So what I started out with is what I ended up with, and so that's the identity. Okay? And then notice how this has an if and a then. It's a 2-step process, so that is your symmetric property. And then do you notice how these guys are exactly inverses of each other or reciprocals? So that is the multiplicative inverse. Okay, now these next few, we're going to start using some of your calculator skills here because when you have stuff like this, you really just want to be able to use the calculator. This is a long test that you guys have to take, and you want to give your brain a break every now and then. Okay, So I strongly recommend that you practice using the TI quite a bit. So just to give you an idea of what we're doing, I'm going to go ahead and clear my calculator. To clear it, I press second plus 712. And then here, when I'm taking a square root of a number, if you notice, there's this right here. And do you see how in blue keys you have a square root, and in a green key you have something else, right? Letters here. So that's going to show me what I need to do here. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the square root. So that's the opposite of squaring something. So I'm going to do second square root. I'm going to plug in 25. And that's it's 5. And then I'll do this one. The square root of 324. So I'm probably, yep, I got a good number. That's 18. Go ahead and try to do these, this next one, square root of 144. Okay, so I do second square root of 144, and we do 12. Now, we have a fraction here. Now, that's just the same as taking the square root of the top and square root of the bottom, but let me show you a trick here. If I do second x squared, I press alpha y equals. That enables me to create a nice little fraction here. So I just enter it as I see it, 16 divided by 49. And I press enter and I get 4/7. And it leaves it in fraction form, which is really nice. So that's alpha y equals is for a fraction. And then we're going to do second x squared to do a square root. Okay. Now, don't mix square roots and cube roots with each other. Okay, do you see how this 3 is here? That's telling me that's a cube root. So do a cube root. I press my math buttons, math, and do you see on option 4, I have a cube root. So I press enter, and I'm going to put in 27. And that's 3. So remember, cube root is equal to math, and then you choose 4, which is the cube root. So I'll do that again. Math, go to the cube root again, and do 343, and I get 7. And then I have the cube root of, math, cube root of 64. I believe that's 4. And then the cube root of 1,000. Okay, so that gives me 10. All right, now these are all order of operations problems. Okay, but here this is absolute value, so we always make this positive. And remember, we do parentheses, exponents, multiplication, and division from left to right, and then addition and subtraction. But there's this beautiful thing called a calculator that you guys can use, and I strongly recommend that you do. So let's see how I would enter this problem in here. Now, I'll write down notes on how to do it. So we're going to do 2 to the third. So to do a cubic, I'm going to use my caret and a 3, and I'll show you where that is. So I'm going to do 2, and the caret is right here to the third. Okay, and then I arrow over, always arrow over. So 2 caret 3, then arrow over, and then I'm going to do parentheses 9 minus 2, close parentheses. And then I'm going to do plus, I'm going to do alpha y equals 12 over 4, which we know is 3. And then I'm going to do minus, and then I'm doing absolute value. So remember, absolute value is always positive, but let's go ahead and look that up. So math, I go to math. So to do absolute value, I do math, arrow over to num, which is right here. And do you see number 1? That's ABS, adds absolute value. So inside of there, I put my -5. All right, now remember, this is a negative, this is a minus. Okay, that's what's crazy about your calculator. Okay, so I'm going to arrow over and press enter, and I get 54. All right, so that worked out nicely, and it's a lot less work. Once you guys get used to using that calculator, it's going to be so much easier for you. I know that it seems a little odd at first and that it feels a little unnatural, but if you guys can figure out how to use a cell phone, you can always figure out how to use this. Okay, so let's go ahead and do 24. If you have a calculator with you, go ahead and pause the video and give it a shot. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see more of the calculator. Okay. So I'm going to clear this one, and I'm going to get 8. So I'm going to enter this exactly how I see it, but I'm going to be very careful. This is a division sign, by the way. So I'm going to do 8 minus, and then instead of brackets, I'm not going to do brackets, I'm just going to do parentheses, okay? So you're going to see a lot of repeated parentheses sometimes. That's okay. Okay, so all right, that doesn't work. So I'm going to do 8 minus parentheses, and then I'm going to do 12 divided by, and in parentheses again, I'm going to put the square root. So again, that's second x squared. So second x squared, and I'm going to put 400, arrow over to get out of it. Always use this arrow key to get out of it. And then I'm going to go minus 2, and this is 2 caret 5, right? So this is, I'm going to press 2, and then my caret is right here to the 5th, all right? And then arrow over again to get out of it, or else you're going to still put everything in the exponent. And then I'm going to close my parenthesis and close my parenthesis again, because there's 2 here, and then I'm going to do plus 11, okay? So this gives me 20. Okay, so remember to use parentheses for this and use parentheses for this one as well. Okay, so what about this one right here? Well, again, I'm going to press alpha y equals, not alpha, alpha, to create a fraction. Okay, so I'm going to do alpha y equals, right? And I press enter. And on the top, I'm going to do, this is 5 so it's 5 3, and then obviously arrow over. So 5 arrow over. And I stay in the exponent mode, and I don't want to do that. So So math, I go down to option 4 for the cube root of 8, and then I arrow over again, right? And I press enter, and I get 59. All right. So you could have done all of this manually, and I know your first instinct is probably to do that, but I really want you to start using this calculator as a tool. Okay. All right. So this one, we have to substitute values in for here. Now your calculator can do that as well. Okay. So Um, what's nice is that your calculator can do it for X, Y, and W. If you're using Desmos, which I'll do another demonstration for Desmos, you can't use X and Y, so you'd have to use different variables. So you'd have to do like A, B, and C. All right, which isn't the end of the world, but I don't want you to get confused about that. So first thing I'm going to say is, okay, X is equal to -3. W is equal to -2, and Y is equal to -1. So I'm going to press my number, right, -3, and then I'm going to press my store key. So, and then I'm going to press X. So I'm going to use the alpha keys, all right? And if you notice, alpha X is right here. I want to make it easy for you guys, so you're going to do the same thing for every letter. So remember, alpha is a green key, and see how the letters are all green? That's how you figure it out. So alpha, X, and then I press X, which is so, and then I press enter. Okay. So that tells me, okay, I'm storing in the number -3 for X. -2 for W. So I do -2, press store, and alpha W. Where's W? And, and so W is now stored for -2. And then I have 1 for Y, so go ahead and just store 1. So you're going to do 1 store alpha, and our Y is this number 1 right here. Okay? So now my calculator has stored these values in. So every time I put in an X, a W, and a Y, these are the values that it's going to put in. Now all we have to do is type out this equation with these variables. So I'm going to do alpha W, right? So alpha, and then my W is the minus key, right? And then I'm going to square it. This is your X squared button, right? And then I'm going to do -5, and I'm going to do alpha X alpha Y. And I get 19. Okay? So the big thing is to store these numbers into your calculator first. All right? So I want to make sure you guys know how to do that. All right, so let's move on to the next ones. And it's K, M, and N. All right, so you can reset the calculator or you can just keep going. So I'm going to reset it. Okay, so for K, I'm going to store a -2. So I'm going to do -2, press my store key, and I always know I press my store key because I get that cute little arrow right there. And I press alpha K, right? And then I have -7, store, and alpha M. So alpha and my M is right here. And then the last one is for store alpha N. Okay. These are an absolute value symbol, so we have to use math arrow over to num, and it's option 1. So let's do that. Let's enter this whole thing as we see it. So we have the number 2, and then I have to do absolute values. So math, and I arrow over to num, and press enter, okay? And then I have m, so alpha m minus n squared, so minus alpha n squared, right? And then I keep arrowing over to get out of that. So I have to use this key right here to get out of it. And then I'm going to do plus k cubed. So I can do alpha, where's my k? K is right here. And I do my caret to the third. Okay, arrow over. And guess what I get? I get 38. The nice thing about using the alpha y equals key is that if you put in a fraction, it leaves everything in fraction form, which is really nice. Okay, so let's try to do this again. Let's do A, B, and C. If you want to go ahead and pause the video and try to do some of these, that would be great. Okay, so hopefully you guys are able to try this on your calculator, because I think the best way to do this is to really work with your calculator. So you're going to press the number, we're going to score 1 for A, -20 for B, and -5 for C. So I'm going to press 1 and store, and I'm going to press alpha A, and then I'm going to press -20. Remember, you have to use this bottom number for negative numbers. Okay, this is used for minus, this is used for negatives. Okay, so -20, and then I'm going to do store, and that's alpha B, and everything goes in order here, so you guys can see. All right, and then my last one, I press enter, and then it's done that. So then I do -5 store alpha C. So C is right here, and I press enter. So it's -5. Now, I have a fraction here, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the fraction. I'm going to press alpha y equals. Okay, so on the top, I have the square root of a times c. So I press second, x squared, and then I'm going to put alpha b, alpha c. Okay, so that's the top. Then I arrow down to the bottom, and in parentheses, I'm going to do c minus a, so alpha c minus alpha a, close the parentheses. Remember, whenever you open a door, you have to close it. Square this whole thing, you just press this cute little button right here, right? And then you do plus alpha b. And we get 5/8. So it leaves it as a really nice reduced fraction. So that makes life so much easier on us. Okay? So I'm going to keep moving. So some of these are translations, and then we have solving equations and solving inequalities and properties and your favorite word problem. So lots to do. So I'll go through this. Let's see what we are with time. I don't like to make my videos any longer than 20 minutes. So, but we'll just keep going for the first few. And then we'll just do these, and then we'll go to another video. So when you're doing translating, you need to remember some key words. So like quotient means division. Twice it means times 2. And whenever you have and, that's usually addition. And then this is equal to. So the way I would express this, the quotient of a number and 7 is 20. So I do twice a number. Twice a number is 2x, 2 times a number where x equals a number. Quotient of twice a number and 7 divided by 7 is equal to 20. Okay? Now let's look at this one. When we have 5 less than the product of a number and 3. So product of a number and 3 is 3x. And then 5 less than. Now, I don't want you to get confused with less than or greater than. What they're doing is they're taking 5 away. So what they do, though, is you have to be careful with your order. Less than or greater than always changes your order. So let's a product of a number and 3 is 3x, and then we have 5 less than that. I'm taking 5 away from that. And then I get is 14. So that's equal to 14. Go ahead and read these next two problems. Pause the video and see how you do with the translations. Okay, so for this one, when we say the difference of the number and 4, 7 times the difference. So when we say the difference, that means there's going to be a number, a subtraction thing in parentheses, or and then the sum is usually also in parentheses. So 7 times the difference of a number and 4. So the difference of a number and 4 times 7 is no more than 10. So when we say no more than, that is less than or equal to. Okay? At least is greater than or equal to. So the product of a number and 4, so 4x increased by 1 is at least 7. So it's greater than or equal to 7. Okay? Not a ton of translations that you guys are going to have to do, but it's definitely worth your time to make sure you understand that. That's just going to make life a lot easier for you when you do word problems. Okay? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop. We've gone through topic 5. I want to go ahead and we'll do topic 6 and through 9, and then on the next video, and then you guys can do the quiz. Okay? Have a great day, guys.